Climate change is one of the most pressing issues of our time. Increasing temperatures, rising sea levels, and extreme weather events are growing ever more common. What can we do about climate change? Innovative business models for clean energy and climate adaptation are a big part of the solution. Plenty of entrepreneurs have great ideas on how they can make an impact. However, it can be challenging to find the investment to get their projects off the ground or to grow their businesses. That's where PFAN comes in. The Private Financing Advisory Network is a global network of climate and clean energy financing professionals, offering free business coaching and investment facilitation to projects and businesses in developing countries, bridging the gap between investors and developers. The PFAN journey begins with an entrepreneur submitting a project proposal, detailing their investment needs. We select high potential projects or businesses and map a pathway to investment. The next step, business coaching, is at the heart of PFAN. We appoint an expert consultant from our network to provide targeted and unbiased one-on-one advice to help entrepreneurs refine their business plans and financial models, something which plays a key role in attracting financing. Once entrepreneurs are ready, we introduce them to suitable investors and, if necessary, provide further support to help make the deal happen. PFAN is funded by our donors, enabling us to provide these services for free. If you're an entrepreneur developing a project or scaling up an existing business in clean energy or climate adaptation, a consultant who wants to share your expertise, or an investor looking to make an impact, we would love to hear from you. Let's work together in creating a cleaner, greener planet where businesses are part of the solution.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Since this is an online event and we can never be too sure who is joining us from which part of the world, I wanted to greet all of you. Today, we are here to discuss the e-mobility landscape of a particular country, that is Pakistan, of course. I am Mavra Bari, the Private Financing Advisory Network Communications and Monitoring and Evaluation Expert, as well as a gender focal person for the USAID funded Pakistan Private Sector Energy Project. It is my honor to be your Master of Ceremony today. The Pakistan Private Sector Energy Project is committing to promoting clean energy and reduce carbon emissions in Pakistan. Since transport accounts for more than 40% of air pollution produced in Pakistan, according to the Climate Change Ministry, electric vehicles and e-mobility infrastructure building is one of our priority areas. Before we proceed with this webinar's agenda, I would like to start the event with the recitation from the Holy Quran and then tell you some housekeeping rules.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
In the name of Allah, the entirely merciful, the especially merciful.
الحمد لله رب العالمين.
All praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds.
الرحمن الرحيم.
The entirely merciful, the especially merciful.
مالك يوم الدين.
Sovereign of the day of recompense.
إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين.
It is you we worship and you we ask for help.
اهدنا الصراط المستقيم.
Guide us to the straight path.
صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
The path of those upon whom you have bestowed favor, not of those who have evoked your anger or of those who are astray.
Welcome back, everyone. Before we begin with the welcome remarks, I would like to take a few minutes to brief you all regarding some housekeeping rules for this session so we can ensure a smooth event. Firstly, this session will be recorded, so if anyone is not comfortable with that, please feel free to leave the event now. This is a control event, which means that attendees can only unmute their mic once given permission from the tech support. We will also be taking questions at the end, so please keep sending your burning questions via the Q&A function. Also, we will be conducting quick polls after each session and a survey at the end to understand your thoughts and take on e-mobility a bit better. Only a few minutes of your time will help with our understanding of how to support you better in the future. So I request that everyone try to submit the polls and surveys. Thank you so much for giving us your time today. Onwards with the agenda now. I would like to welcome our two presenters to give you more information about Private Financing Advisory Network, PFAN, and Pakistan Private Sector Energy, PPSE, as well as how USAID is helping Pakistan on the road to climate resilience. First, I would like to welcome Mr. Peter Story, Global Coordinator at PFAN, joining us all the way from Helsinki, Finland. Peter has 25 years of experience working for European commercial and investment banks, private sector project developers, and donor-funded development initiatives. He has a proven track record in fundraising and program design and investment in structured financing. He's an expert in international financing solutions in developing countries and transition economies, currently specializing in climate change, clean and renewable energy projects. On to you, Peter.
Thank you, Mavra. Welcome everybody to the Pakistan Private Sector Energy Programme's first themed event on electric mobility or e-mobility. PPSE, as we call it, is a USAID funded program implemented by PFAN, which aims to accelerate and increase the amount of clean energy investment in the sector in Pakistan. We do this by originating promising and early stage deals, supporting them with investment banking, technical assistance services, helping them reach financial close. My colleagues will explain later more about this through the event. In an intensive market scoping study conducted at the beginning of the PPSE program, the e-mobility or electric mobility sector was identified as showing significant potential for deal flow and investment, which is why we are taking a deeper dive today with you. The objectives that we have really is to understand the sector better and to identify opportunities and challenges for PFAN to be able to provide our support to projects and companies working in this sector and help them achieve financial close. I'm looking forward to a really vibrant and stimulating discussion with you. And at the end of the day, what I really hope is that we get a lot of applications into the PPSE, which PFAN can support and provide services to you. And I look forward to working with you and with the colleagues at the PPSE and USAID to make that happen. Thank you in advance for your time today. Thank you for your brain power. And thank you to USAID for making this all possible. Back to you, Mavra.
Thank you very much, Peter. I'm sure PFAN is much more clear to our guests now. Now I would like to invite Ms. Rabia Bukhari, Program Management Specialist, Energy, USAID. Rabia Bukhari has 15 years of experience working with development in international organizations. She joined USAID in 2010 as the Program Management Specialist. Currently, she is working as the private sector engagement lead for energy sector and managing Pakistan's private sector energy project that is implemented by UNIDO and PFAN. She is also the manager for the Clean Energy Loan Guarantee Project with the local commercial banks. She has previously managed infrastructure rehabilitation projects for the energy sector. Ms. Rabia Bukhari holds a master's degree in business administration with majors in project management. Rabia, over to you.
Thank you, Mavra. Distinguished officials from Government of Pakistan, private sector leaders, EV industry players, financial and development sector representatives, USAID, USG colleagues, UNIDO, PFAN colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. I'm delighted to join this forum as a representative of United States Agency for International Development called USAID. Let me begin thanking you all on behalf of US government for your participation in this event today. Climate is an important factor, as we all understand that Pakistan is one of the adversely impacted countries by climate change. And having a good mitigation and adaptation measures to address climate change issue is the key. Similarly, the electric mobility market is another adaptation measure to help reduce emissions and pollution caused by the motors industry. The energy sector has a great investment potential through a variety of renewable and clean energy resources like hydro, wind, solar, bagasse, and other biofuels. And similarly, on the same lines, Government of Pakistan, as we all understand, is already undertaking many good initiatives to address the climate issues and have set reasonable targets for renewable energy and hydro share in the energy mix by 2030. We have also a Ministry of Industries representative. Hopefully, he'll be joining us later at the panel session to talk about the EVs policy and the plans from the government side. And let me also talk about a little bit what role USAID is playing in the energy sector. USAID has been working in the energy sector for more than a decade now. And we have been very closely working with Government of Pakistan. We have implemented several projects, which included direct grants to the Government of Pakistan for construction and rehabilitation projects. And we also have provided technical assistance through different mechanisms. While we all have gathered here to talk about electric mobility or EV segment, I would like to stress upon that having an affordable EV charging infrastructure is equally important. And in this regard, USAID is partnering with US Department of Energy, who is another US agency, who is advising NEPRA, who is the regulatory authority in the power sector, on the tariff regime for the EVs charging. And we are also in discussions to review the standards, electrical standards, and monitoring structure for the charging as well, to ensure that standards and policies are properly implemented. As you already heard about PFAN PPSE project, that is another mechanism available with USAID to support EV segment and also other clean energy and climate resilient projects. Lastly, we also have another upcoming project which is under procurement right now. That project also plans to work closely with government in implementing the wholesale electricity market competitive procurement structure, and also continue our support to the much needed infrastructure improvements and operational improvements in transmission and distribution sectors, because we cannot neglect that sector equally while we work on adding more power. So I look forward to today's event and hope you all find it very informative. Thank you for joining us today again. Thank you. Over to you, Mavra.
Thank you so much, Rabia. That was very informative regarding USAID's impact and activities. And I really agree with you that working on the infrastructure is equally important. Now I would like to move on to our second session. Regarding the PFAN approach, bridging the gap between clean energy entrepreneurs and investors. I would like to invite my colleague, Mr. Ghazil Jabbar. Ghazil has more than 20 years experience working in investment banking, private equity, and energy efficiency. His main areas of expertise are mergers and acquisitions, business development, transaction management across e-mobility, renewable energy, financial institutions, oil and gas, energy efficiency. He is currently leading the PPSE project origination, and he is serving as the Deputy Chief of Party for PFAN PPSE project. Over to you, Ghazil.
Thank you, Mavra. Appreciate this introduction. A warm welcome to all the participants who logged in, and thank you for joining us today. I have a presentation to share with you today, and I will just do that right now. I'll be walking you through the global PFAN program and its dedicated USAID funded PPSE project in Pakistan, and would build upon what Peter and Rabia have expressed about the two programs. And I would like to, during this presentation, also talk about our team eligibility criteria and the range of services that we have to offer for Pakistan. I would like to start initially with a value proposition that the PFAN PPSE program brings to Pakistan. As you know, the program is a global program. The problems with developing markets remains the same. It's bridging the gap we need to bridge the gap between clean energy entrepreneurs and investors. So on one side, we have limited supply of investor-ready projects. There's literally an oversupply of poorly structured projects. The entrepreneurs don't have the financial and commercial skill sets to take a project out to investors. They don't have the capability to prepare and make a bankable project. So that's on one side. The other side is access into financing. And financiers, there's large pool of capital. There are limited amount of products that are available in the clean energy space. There's limited knowledge of technologies and business models. And there's a gap in the market. So the entrepreneurs are unable to access pools of capital through financing, through equity products. That's what the PFAN PPSE project is going to bridge. We are looking to develop and build capacity of projects and SME space projects in the clean energy space in Pakistan, and help them become better bankable businesses, create financial models, help them with information memorandums and develop transaction documents, and help them connect with potential investors and lenders in the process, and to achieve financial flows to a project. A bit about PFAN. PFAN is a global network of more than 160 climate, energy, and finance experts. There's a heavy focus of, in developing countries like Africa. We've got 71 advisors operating in Africa. And we have an advisory network of 8 advisors in Pakistan, and we are growing as we speak. We have presence in Latin America, in Central Asia, in Central Asia and Eastern Europe, and South and Southeast Asia. Just by background, PFAN initiated its operations in 2006 and was started being hosted on the UNIDO and the REAP platform since 2016. The PPSE program, which is the USAID funded program, is also hosted by UNIDO and REAP in Pakistan. It is a unique value proposition, because we're transferring the service into Pakistan. It's tried and tested. We have a success history, which I will brief you through on the following slides. And this is a multi-party trust-funded model supported by multiple government funds, including funds from Sweden, Australia, the USAID, Norway, etc. PFAN's track record is very good. Considering that these projects are typically unstructured projects, focused more in the developing areas and in the SME space, where the entrepreneurs are not capable of really going out and hiring top-notch advisors for their projects. This service with PFAN has, we've supported nearly 1,000 projects globally, and more than 300 projects currently in pipeline. We've complied with the SDG goals, and as a result, we've raised $2 billion in capital over 173 projects with a success rate of 17%. And in the project, in this process, we've increased clean energy capacity of over 2 gigawatts and mitigated 4.3 million tons of carbon in the process. I'd like to stress more on the Pakistan PPSE program, on this slide. This is a dedicated USAID-funded PPSE program under the Private Financing Advisory Network and dedicated only for Pakistan. This project was launched in February 2021 and has a clear focus on clean energy and the SME sector in Pakistan. We're currently a dedicated team of 14 people on ground with local knowledge, local expertise, here to assist and support the local SMEs and local entrepreneurs looking to build capacity for their projects, trying to help them make bankable. We are also in the process of expanding our capacity as we will take on projects. As I mentioned earlier, we have an advisory network of 8 people who are industry-specific finance and technical experts with local knowledge. We have full access to the PFAN network, through the global structure, to the investor network base, through global expertise that we pull into the 173 projects that we've worked through across the globe. We currently have 6 projects onboarded, and we've got a very robust upcoming pipeline in the clean energy space, specifically for Pakistan. We've already partnered with JS Bank, and we're in advanced stages of detailed discussions with financial institutions for potential partnerships. And this will be typically helpful while we try to approach the state bank renewable energy facilities and related initiatives also by the government of Pakistan, USAID programs, UNIDO, and others. The advisory service that we offer is very unique, and it will be a very personalized service, and will, the allocated advisor will work very closely with the project developer and based on the development needs of that specific project. This is just a snapshot of what the USAID funded PPSE project is. It's funded by the USAID. The implementing partner is PFAN, as we mentioned earlier. The hosting partners are UNIDO and REAP. We've got the dedicated management team of 6 people on ground. Typically, our role is project origination, providing advisory services to the private sector, and focus primarily on energy, clean energy, and the SME space. We are building relationships with financial institutions simultaneously to support the projects that we onboard, for potential lenders. We are also building relationships with equity investors for investment-ready projects in the matchmaking process, which will support us in the matchmaking process. We will be launching an SME acceleration services as well for early stage support of clean energy businesses, with the objective of really bringing on those projects on the main pipeline of the PPSE program. We've got on the extreme right, we've got PPSE advisors who are, we've got 8 advisors on ground who are really supporting the SMEs in the clean energy space on a day-to-day basis, making their projects bankable, helping them through every step of the way toward a financial close of particular projects. So they're typically financial experts, climate experts who are experienced in bringing projects up to par with investor readiness and investor facilitation. So they are transactional people along with a lot of climate experience as well. A bit about the team on ground. Peter, myself have been introduced by Mavra. Thank you for that. We've got as a team very strong experience in corporate finance, investment banking, private equity, renewable energy, clean energy space, energy efficiency overall, in debt, equity, and with Peter has more of a very global experience with PFAN. As a global coordinator, he draws down the international experience and the expertise of working with developing markets. And we on ground, with localized knowledge and experience, we give a very good mix of experience to a local entrepreneur and help them towards financial close. I look particularly at project origination, and we're looking to build through investor outreach events as well as personalized approaches for projects. Amar Qureshi leads the financial institutions relations and investor relations, where he's also building relationships with financial institutions primarily to access the lending products along with the SBP facilities. He's also looking to build relationships with investors for equity investors. Hamad Bashir currently looks at public sector relations, and when the SME Service Accelerator is launched, he will be leading that initiative from our side as well. He's got some experience on startups with the UNIDO platform for over the last 6 years. Mavra leads our communication. You've seen Mavra as the MOC today, and she also has experience with startups and women-led businesses in Pakistan. Santiago is based out of Vienna. He provides us. He's really our backbone and provides us the operational support that we require for this project. He's worked with the Green Climate Fund in the past as well. So he has some climate energy experience to his name. A bit about our service offering. The SME Accelerator, like I mentioned, is typically more incubation of early stage businesses, more mentoring for potential entrepreneurs. So we will be providing that very soon. And this is a very dedicated PPSE program, special SME program that is created for the PPSE. And we've already partnered with a US firm called Engine to execute the same. So the objective here is to graduate projects into the main pipeline of the PPSE and help them through a financial flows. So we are going a bit early stage in Pakistan, which we don't do under the PFAN platform globally. Project origination, of course, personalized origination efforts along with roadshows and outreach events. The development pipeline is typically projects who have been onboarded with us. We take them, help them become bankable. We work through with them an information memorandum, financial model, transaction documents, help them with structuring of this transaction. And once they're ready, once their investment ready, we take them into the next stage of investment facilitation. And that's where we are matchmaking these potential projects with equity investors and arranging lending facilities for them to achieve a financial close. In this process, if many of these projects require some level of financial support for, let's say, due diligence, some research work that needs to go in prior to financial close. So we have a tipping point, technical assistance to really assist that last tipping point of that transaction to really get to a financial close. I'd like to talk about our typical eligibility criteria and what type of projects we get on board. So it kind of gives you a good overview on what we're really looking at. So we, of course, look at our in the SME space, we want to focus on between the $1 to $50 million transaction spot as a sweet spot for Pakistan, because we want this to be an SME focused area. However, we're open to larger transactions as well. The projects have to be commercially and technically viable. So the information that we will require for you to upload with us, will be adequate enough for us to really gauge if the project is commercially and technically viable. We're focused on only on clean energy projects in the PPSE program, and there's no preference over technology that goes in that particular project. We are again open to projects from any province, but we've identified certain priority areas for us where we would like to focus on for Pakistan. As first priority, we have identified 4 specific areas. One of them is rural electrification and energy access. This could, just for example purposes, typically be rural homes, small solar projects for rural homes, energy access. This could include microgrids for telecom base stations. E-mobility, we're very focused on this. As you can see, this event is an e-mobility space event as well. We want to focus across the entire value chain. It could be storage, tech projects, manufacturing, anything related to e-mobility is interesting to us because we feel very passionate about this space, and we feel this is an area which is developing in Pakistan, and we want to play a significant role in it. The B2B captive and distributed energy space is typically industrial consumers putting up solar projects for captive consumption. That's becoming a very typical project space in Pakistan, and banks are also looking at this from a lending perspective. Lastly, bioenergy, which is waste to energy. This could include typical bagasse-based projects, waste bagasse to energy conversion projects, could be cow dung to energy projects, which, also all these focus areas are priority number one. Priority two, we want to focus on waste management and renewable energy and recycling projects across, more urban areas. As priority three, we want to focus on energy efficiency. This could be energy efficiency in industrial usages. It could be LED-based lighting. Industry 4.0, digital fintech focus. Again, our focus will remain clean energy here, but we could support, for an example, a tech product or a tech application which is raising funding for a potential clean energy project through technology. So we could fund that. As priority four, we feel that the IPP space is not a space where the SMEs really focus on, but we would like to do this on an opportunistic basis and not really focus very heavily on it until it's really an SME putting up this particular project. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation here and would like to thank you for your attention. I would like to highlight that we are accepting applications for projects and would really encourage you, if you have a clean energy project at hand, we would encourage you to go on our website, put up an application for us to consider. My colleague Hamad Bashir will be talking about how to put up an application, so I would encourage you to also attend that session so it helps you understand how to really put up an application with us. Thank you for your time. Over to you, Mabra.
Thank you so much, Lazil. That was very informative. I hope everyone learned more about PFAN's value proposition. So as all of you can see, the first poll is up. So if you could kindly just quickly answer this, it's a single choice question, whichever you think is most relevant. What is the biggest challenge to the mainstreaming of e-mobility in Pakistan? Option one, lack of access to financing. Option two, consumer resistance. And number three, policy pitfalls. Just please choose your answer quickly, and then we will reveal the answer in just a few seconds. So, okay, lack of access to financing, which is very relevant for PFAN. So, okay, thank you so much. So we'll have two more polls like this, and then one last one at the end. So just because I think some people joined a bit late, there were some housekeeping rules that were said. I see that there's questions in the Q&A. Thank you for those. The questions that were asked to Gaza will be answered at the end. So don't worry about that. And also I see that there's a hand raised from a participant. Again, we will take questions at the end. If you have a question, please write in the Q&A. Okay, so let's move on to the next session, which is the Entrepreneur's Corner, the race towards raising the capital your business needs. This actually has Q&A right after the presentation. We will also be highlighting some success stories of PFAN Global. So for this, I would like to welcome Mr. Nagaraja Rao. He's the head of investment facilitation at PFAN, who is joining us from Bangalore, India, right across the border, to present on PFAN e-mobility case studies and share with entrepreneurs how PFAN can help them raise capital in this sector. Nagaraja is a certified climate and renewable energy finance expert and has been with PFAN since 2008 in various capacities as coach, country coordinator, and as Asia regional coordinator. He has coached projects in many countries in the developing world. Several of these have reached financial closure, and many have won awards at PFAN investor forums, which I'm sure is what everyone wants. Nagaraja provides investment facilitation support through transaction structuring, financial modeling, project risk identification, and investment negotiations. So please, Nagaraja, I would love to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mara. Appreciate the introduction. Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening from where you are, and welcome to the session. I'll share my presentation with you. Yes. So today we talk about Pakistan's e-mobility opportunities. I think this is at a very good timing, I must say, because EV is the flavor of the season, as I can tell you, that the investors and financiers seems to be worried about the FOMO syndrome, the fear of missing out. And they seem to be pouring the money. As you can see, 12.8 billion has come in across 193 deals in 2020 itself, and 2021 has been it has been speeding up. There are about 10 million electric cars around the world till the end of 2020. When we talk about the electric vehicle opportunities, we talk about electric cars, electric buses, electric heavy-duty trucks, and of course, the two-wheelers and the three-wheelers, which are more relevant to our economies. Falling battery costs are spurring quicker adoption. This is an important thing. In 2010, the battery would cost about $1,100, and a battery pack today is down to $156 in 2019. A battery pack size now has about 44 kilowatt hour. It used to be 37 just about 3 years back, and this has a very impact on the range that is very important for electric vehicles. One of the things that may interest you is probably, in case you haven't heard of that, many of the countries have signed electric vehicles 30 at 30. This is like 30% of the vehicles should be e-vehicles by 2030. And Pakistan is one of the signatories to that, though the scope is limited to passenger light duty vehicles. But it is nevertheless a very interesting opportunity for the country. Zero emission transportation, this is very critical for the kind of pollution that we see, and also the fact that when the power is through renewable energy, it becomes completely green. E-mobility as a service, these are things which we are seeing, the varieties of things that are coming, not just the innovation in technology, but also the innovation in business plans and the way the services are being offered. So e-mobility as a service, as companies are offering on-demand access to passengers for last mile transportation. Digitizing the purchase process, which is a pandemic-driven innovation. Today we don't even have to go to the showroom. We have high quality videos and explaining everything. We have the bots and chats which allow us to look at the models and decide before we really want to purchase. So the pandemic disruption of supply chain created new opportunities and services, because people working from home and also shifting to say outskirts, as it is not necessary to be in the central business district. So these kind of things have helped to drive the demand for the vehicles. Let me tell you about PFAN. My colleagues Peter and Ghazal told you about PFAN. Let me tell you exactly how we did it and how we do it at the project level. We picked up, we have been looking at e-vehicle segment almost since 2000, 10 probably. We used to get projects from Philippines for replacing the diesel run jeepneys, which is there, the sort of a lifeline of Manila, with electric vehicles. And then we had electric vehicle proposals from Thailand, Vietnam, India, and so on. So this is one of the Indian projects which has been a success story. Ither came to us in 2014. He's the main promoter is from IIM Ahmedabad, Indian Institute of Management, a very well-regarded, respected qualification. He was very young. He came to us probably he was in his late 20s or maybe early 30s, and we talked to him about his business plan, the financial projections, the investors' presentation, and so on. So we helped him to raise the first 1 million, which came from one of the high net worth individuals in India, and then there has been no looking back for this company. To date, they have raised about 158 million. They have 3 models. They have a plant in Bangalore. They are selling about 15,000 electric scooters in India, and they are increasing the capacity. So one of the things that we have seen is that almost about 10 different types of models and companies have come in Indian market itself in the last 2 years. So let me take you to another example. This is example of PFAN's intervention in a company called KIK. That QIQ is pronounced as KIK. They are based out of Vietnam and also in Singapore. They came to us in 2018. This is a very interesting project because they positioned themselves as a tourist vehicle to start with, but then expanded their horizon as we went on interacting with them in terms of their business plan, their strategies, their tactics, and financial projections, and the money that they need and all that. So these were one of the people who presented to the investors in Singapore in 2019 January. So one of their key differentiator is that they have a rapid charger which charges in 7 minutes, can give a 200 kilometers range, and that is a significant advantage. They claim the battery has 20 times more lifespan than lithium batteries, and they are looking at something like 5,000 vehicles to be launched in the current year. They're using the blockchain technology to create an ecosystem of the community. They survived a climate risk. A major devastating flood happened in Vietnam in 2020. They were sort of almost out of business for a quarter, but then they have come back, and they have provided this last mile solution in Vietnam. The company has they have tied up with TPR Invest in Singapore to grow their business. So those are the 2 success stories that I wanted to share with you quickly. Now let's look at how we can look at the sector in the context of Pakistan's economy. The prime thing that goes, whether it is Pakistan or India or Philippines or Vietnam, is the affordability. So the price of an average EV has been steadily coming down, which is a real booster to the demand. Subsidies have been instrumental. Almost all the countries have been giving subsidies. I'll come to it a little later. I've got some more details on that. Last 2 years, the battery cost has reduced more than 20%. It is expected to come down further. Combined charging station, fast charging station are the need of the hour in terms of making the ecosystem happen. We need private chargers, publicly accessible chargers, like what you might be seeing in Europe and Singapore and all that, where you have in other airports or in the malls and such public places. Leading governments are developing programs and strategy to roll out high-powered charging networks. One of the things that also drives the demand is the decrease in the charging time and the weight of the vehicle. Average driving range is steadily increasing. It is now almost touching 400 kilometers. Innovation and R&D continues, not just in the vehicle, like I said, but also in the way the business plan is imagined. In the developing countries, if you look at the ecosystem that is happened, the developing countries like New Zealand has given cash rebate, purchase incentives in 20 European countries in the European Union, income tax credits in USA, point of sale incentive in Canada. If I were to club roughly what's happening in our part of the geography, if you look at Thailand, India, Indonesia, Pakistan, we have different types of incentives for EVs like corporate income tax exemption, reduction in import duties, lowering concessional sales tax, subsidies, tax benefits to the end customer. So the governments are on board in terms of encouraging e-vehicles. What are the constraints and challenges? Range is one of the crucial challenges for electric vehicles, and that is the reason today we still see that as something that is yet to take roots as a main mode of transport, but still it is a bit of I think I'm running out of time, but let me quickly complete that. If I see Maura, it is time up for me. So the consumer perception about electric vehicles is still weak. Lack of assurance about satisfactory resale value, which is very important for economies like ours. Most countries relies upon import of EV batteries, realizing a high cost of the component and replacement value of the battery, replacement cost of the battery, inadequate charging infrastructure and inaccessibility of charging stations. Electric vehicles have not yet become the mainstream transportation, mainly because the regulations, whether it is municipal or central, challenges on insurance, challenges in registering the vehicles, safety concerns of the consumers, and so on. This is the clean transport projects in PFAN pipeline. I'll just hold it for a minute for you, which we have done over a period of time in PFAN. As you can see, it is many countries: India, Kenya, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, Namibia, Philippines, Ukraine, Pakistan. The one that you see in Switzerland is actually the unit was in one of the developing countries. Otherwise, we work only in developing countries. In the recent past, these are the kind of money people have raised for electric vehicles. As you can see, whether it is 8 million, 10 million, 2 million, whatever, it has gone up to 100 million, which is Vola Electric, which was launched just on the 15th of August in India. 100 million is that they have raised from Bank of Baroda. So if you see this kind of a thing, it is just to tell you that this is the right time, right product, and that you are in the right place to do it. As I can see, probably you are, some 100 people are listening to us. So grab the opportunity is what I would say. Thank you, and best of luck. Maura, back to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nagaraja. There's one question. I think we can take one question. So if you'd like, first let's do the poll, and then maybe we can answer that one question that is to you. Everyone, poll 2 is: where do e-mobility companies need most help from PFAN? Option 1, development of the business model. Number 2, developing bankable documentation. Number 3, developing a financial model. Number 4, structuring the investment. And finally, introduction to investors, financiers. So if everyone could please answer this. Nagaraja, while people are answering, the question we have is from Faisal Chaudhary, and he's asking, I understand Athar India, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it well, has not done too well due to the high price tag. 15,000 scooters in 3 years for India seems very low. Would you say matching the price of EVs to ICE models is one key challenge for EV rollout in emerging markets? Thank you, Faisal. That's a very good question. Over to you, Nagaraja.
Thank you, Maura. And thank you, Mr. Chaudhary. Yes, indeed, you got it right. The price point was high, and there has been some subsidy from the government also. And plus, though the market is big, nobody can afford to go across the entire Indian market in one go. So they started in selective markets like Bangalore, Chennai, and a couple of markets. So they are growing slowly. And in the last 3 years, when they did 15,000, the thing is that they were also doing 3-4 models side by side. So before going into the entire market, their strategy is also to see which model would sell best. They are also completely into the the product enhancement and product say variations, so that they can figure out which will sell the best. The latest one that has come in, Ola, which is about 20% less, is already putting pressure on them in terms of bringing down the prices as competition heats up. So they will have to perform, or the market will show them the exit door. So you're right in what you said. Thank you.
Thank you so much for answering that. I hope that clarified the question, and our poll is out as well. So we have a winner, development of the business model. Again, great. This is something that PFAN already is doing and has a lot of experience and success in, so I'm glad. Thank you so much, Nagaraja. We're going to move on to the second round, the third round. And if there's any other questions, we can take them at the end that are towards Nagaraja. Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So now we are moving to our roundtable discussion. I would like to introduce my colleague, Mr. Amar Qureshi, who is PFAN PPSE expert. Amar Qureshi is working as an investment expert with UNIDO for their PPSE PFAN project in Islamabad. He is an experienced and seasoned professional with more than 23 years of experience in investment banking, financial services, consulting, and corporate sectors. He has worked in Pakistan, the UK, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. He has also worked in oil and gas industry for carbon funds and headed climate change and sustainability division at Ernst & Young. With years of experience in the financial and energy sectors, he is leading the investment facilitation initiative at PPSE PFAN project. Hi, Amar, over to you. Let me just...
Thank you, Mavra, for that introduction. Very much appreciated. And good afternoon and hello, everyone. I welcome you to this session on EV in Pakistan, the landscape, challenges and opportunities. We are very lucky. We have a very impressive panel today who are joining me, and I will be moderating that discussion with these panelists. We have got a nominee from Engineering Development Board who will be talking about the policy. We have two project developers. One of them is an academic also at LUMS. And then we have one very experienced banker who will be talking from the demand side. So let me get into the introductions. First of all, let me introduce Mr. Asim Ayaz Saab. He is General Manager Policy at Engineering Development Board. Engineering Development Board is a subsidiary of Ministry of Industries and Production, and it is the custodian of EV policy. So policy making is his domain. We have got with us Mr. Ali Khar. He's a project developer and he's CEO ONA Mobility. Then we have Dr. Naveed Arshad Saab with us. He's an academic at LUMS. He heads computer sciences department there, and he's founder New Bold. Last, we have Mr. Muhammad Iftikhar Javed Saab. He's head of auto business at Bank Al-Falah. So welcome all of you gentlemen to this discussion. What EV, as we know, is the transport of the future, and a number of countries are switching from fossil fuel vehicles to EV. Pakistan is also one of the countries which has formulated the policy, and it has set very ambitious targets. So let me start with you, Asim Saab. Can you please tell us some of the main features of the EV policy? And we would like to hear from you some measures which have been announced in the policy to spur both demand and supply side. And last of all, what are the main initiatives which are being envisaged either currently or upcoming that will spur the EV industry? So over to you. Can you unmute yourself, Asim Saab? Unmute. You are on mute.
Yeah, thank you.
Again on mute. You're again on mute, please. Yeah.
Sir, am I audible now? Or?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you now. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. Actually, I'm in a traveling mode and I'm at my regional office in Karachi. So sorry for, initial disturbance. I'm secretary of Auto Industry Development Committee, or I'm looking after these policy formulation. Obviously, Dr. Naveed is also here from LUMS. We work collectively, and basically it was an input from the Ministry of Climate Change. They have been assisting climate change. And our office, my office, is mostly dealing in the manufacturing side of EVs. So there was a vision that we'll convert to some portion of EVs by certain time. There were a lot of input from academia, what should happen. There was a lot of discussion, communication on the infrastructure which has to be developed. And there was a lot of coordination issues which were discussed. We had a committee of various ministers which finalized the policy, but my office, Engineering Development Board, is concerned in manufacturing or putting some tariffs on import and creating a balance between local manufacturing and the imports. So we came up with a policy for motorcycles, three-wheelers, cars, heavy vehicles, buses, etc., cars and SUVs. So entire EV sector, entire vehicle segment is covered in that policy. So just want to update that policy has already been approved and the incentives are already part of finance bill. So there are the set of incentives are different for different type of industry. For motorcycles, they are different. For trucks, they are different. But there is one thing common, that the EV specific parts, and I'm talking about manufacturing now, the EV specific parts of the e-vehicles have been allowed at incentivized import, that is 1% of the custom duty. And there are no additional duties on the import of, or well, if you are manufacturing an EV. So for details, I think I'll not be too technical, because out of 100 people listening this thing, most of them may be the students or the normal businessmen or entrepreneurs. They're always welcome to visit our office, talk to us. You can also share our number with them, and we can tell them specifically what benefits are for what category of vehicles. But talking about motorcycles, the manufacturing EV portion, motor controller, battery converter, etc., that has been incentivized, and the sale tax has been reduced from 17 to 1%. So that was an incentive given by the government of Pakistan. That's the major incentive. And on input of parts, there is zero sale tax. So there are no sale tax refunds. So duty on electric specific parts of motorcycles is 1%. And the normal duty for the motorcycles will continue. If there is motorcycles, as you know, has various parts, including wheel, maybe the transmission. In case of electric, it's different. It has a seat, it has a light, it has a steering, etc. So the parts which are common to the existing motorcycle have the normal rate of duty, and the EV specific parts have been reduced to 1%, which constitute a significant portion also. And that is the incentive given to the manufacturers under SRO, which is meant for manufacturing of vehicles. That is SRO 656. We have our own checklist. Our policy will roll out in a month or so. That policy is called Auto Industry Development and Export Policy for 21 to 26. That contains these EVs incentives. The incentives, as I already said, have been announced, but it will be covered in the policy also. Secondly, the chargers, etc., they are also at 1% duty, and for charging infrastructure, that is the duty, custom duty is 0%. Now, how to go about, who will construct or who will be responsible for having the charging station, which the learned speakers have also highlighted, and my other colleagues will also update you on that. But having a charging station involves various other ministries also, maybe Ministry of Communication and Ministry of Energy or Power Division. We have to fix the rates, etc. These chargers are, we can see these are coming up in the market. This was a difficult situation, and we were aware of this situation, that the charging infrastructure building is a challenge, and the manufacturing is related to that charging infrastructure. Who will or which will come first? It was a big question mark. However, we stuck to our own agenda and we announced a policy. And in motorcycle, we have already approved 2 or 3 wheelers. In 2 or 3 wheelers, we have already approved 3 players who will be manufacturing EVs in Pakistan. For trucks and buses, 100% total CKD of trucks and buses is allowed at 1% of custom duty, which is a huge incentive. And the locally manufactured truck or bus will be sold at 1% sale tax. So if you see the normal tariffs, those are very high. In terms of cars and SUVs, the tariff custom duty for normal parts of such cars is 30% and 46%. In case of EVs, if that car is an EV, the 30% comes down to 10%, and the 46 comes down to 25%, and the EV specific parts are at 1% of custom duty. So just I'm telling you about the custom duties and facilitation. To get a license, you have to just approach my office, which is Engineering Development Board. It's a one window operation now. You don't have to go anywhere. The SRO allows, it's a simple procedure. But just let me update you that we do not have any application as of now for manufacturing of vehicles other than motorcycles, but there is a lot of demand, or there is a lot of interest being shown by the people. We have already announced our policy. We are looking forward to the incentives and coming to this seminar. I thank the organizers. I was interestingly, I was seeing some of the workable ideas which 2 of the earlier presenters gave. Why can't we have a project over here? We can put you through with the local manufacturers. There are a lot of people doing a lot of good work here. They are gearing up for EVs. A company which first got a license produced 1,000, then 2,000, and then now the capacity they are working for is, I mean, they are trying to increase their production to 5,000 within 3-4 months of EV bikes, electric bikes. So we think, as you think, that this technology is going to prevail. We have kept ourselves open for this. We have incentivized.
Yeah, thank you, Asim Saab. Thank you, Saab. Thank you. I think you have given a very elaborate description of the incentives. We need to move on to other participants, and we'd like to keep this discussion very interactive also among the participants. So, Mr. Ali Khar Saab, you are the next person. Your company, it represents the supply side. So we would definitely like to hear from you about the supply side landscape of EV in Pakistan and a bit about your project. But before that, what I would like you to respond to some of the points which have been raised by Asim Saab. So what do you think? What is your opinion about the government's EV policy, and what additional measures you think are needed to boost supply side? So if you can answer this question first, and then we can come to your project as well as the overall landscape of EV, supply side EV.
Thank you very much for having me here, Amar. First of all, we're very happy that Asim Saab made clear these points. Many people, so one of the issues also is that many people aren't aware of the policy, because the policy has come quite a few times. It's changed a few times. We're finally glad that it's at its final phase right now. But we're very glad that he shared these points with us. We feel, unlike many other countries, the policies were front-loaded with a lot of subsidy, which initially came in and offset a lot of the inhibitions that people had with regards to EV. Because a lot of the supply chain currently doesn't exist. The local manufacturing, for example, doesn't exist. So there was a lot of subsidy in many countries to come and do this, particularly India and many other countries. However, one positive part about our policy currently is that if you look at the conventional industry, there are a lot of taxes, and our subsidy potentially is in effect in the form of having relief on those taxes, or we pay less taxes. So I think as far as the policy currently speaks about taxes, to that extent, it's positive and it's certainly a first step. Any country, even India and otherwise, so India had a FAME 1, and currently it's a FAME 2. Hopefully this is a version 1.0 of our policy, and as traction grows, as demand grows, as more stakeholders in the market grow, we can hopefully work with Asim Saab's department and the government to push for more. But we're very glad that we have a first starting point to start with. Separately, as we were speaking earlier, I mean, other parts in the policy which they don't really touch on is an EV tariff. When you look at EVs, there's a total cost of ownership, which people have to consider in what the real use application is. And a large part that drives it is, for example, one of the parts is, again, your cost of electricity within it, which is one of the benefits. So again, EV tariffs and these sort of things need to come in within the policy, where there need to be preferential advantages or some things, or more clarity on that side, which just make it, and these are things that can be done initially. In Pakistan, many industries have subsidy on electricity, etc. Even let's say if we have 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, or even 100,000 vehicles or EVs, that subsidy, any subsidy given on the electricity tariff would still be a very minuscule compared to what those industries are. So I think one good further step would be reducing the electricity tariff. But otherwise, we're very happy with the starting point that we've got. What they could do is they could start becoming much more vocal and clearer about this. So many people who are not within the industry, like we probably know it because we were part of it, should just be more aware of the benefits and the tax and the breaks, etc. And as far as the one window that he spoke of, so again, the one window potentially namesake is there, but how accessible that one window is and how many windows we have to go through to get to that one window. So again, if there's more access to that, we'd be very happy. But we're very happy that we have our first launching pad to get on to the EV, which is inevitably the future.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much for your comment on that. And now we come to the question that I had asked. How do you see as a supply side person about the landscape of EV developing in the coming years? And tell us a bit about your project also, so that our viewers, they come to know what sort of project development is taking place already in Pakistan.
So we were one of the first projects which was approved by PFAN, so we're working with them right now. We're currently, as a project as well, we're also at the stage where we're doing our first round of investment and we're about to close it. So very soon in the market, you'll be seeing us, people, the general public will be interacting with these electric vehicles. So a lot of it will move from policy, from pictures and from the internet to actual on-ground availability of these services, which everyone can take part of. And we're primarily aimed at the common man, at the affordable sector, again, where we feel we'll have the greatest impact. Coming back to supply, so e-mobility primarily as per our policy is focused on cars, three-wheelers, variants of two-wheelers and buses. When we talk about supply, each one of these is at its nascent stages. We have to see, given our socioeconomic constraints, electricity dynamics, and technological complexity or investment required for each, then place that within the ambits of our EV policy to find where real growth within the sector will come from. Additionally, till the ecosystem develops, the initial entrants to the market face similar issues to the first telco operators or telecoms operators. It was amazing to have wireless phones, but without towers, they wouldn't really be too effective. So for e-mobility, charging solutions will be equally important, and the dynamics are very different from fueling. In America, where initially EVs, etc., let's say, came from, the driver for people primarily, so it was individuals buying cars, and the drivers was led by prestige and the environment. In Europe, the environment, whereas in Pakistan and the developing world, the large driver will be cost. And we've already seen this within our first fuel shift, which was CNG. We had about 3 million vehicles operating on CNG, primarily driven by just a cheaper fuel. We had a $3.5 billion annual revenue coming from there, an entire ecosystem. Like, a lot of people are afraid, will the charging stations come in? Will this happen or not? But pretty much Pakistanis and people within the region need to look at us and realize that we had an entire infrastructure for CNG within their own stations, etc., mechanics, the whole system, and it worked. And in 2014, when it tapped, when we had to sort of leave it, nothing took the space of that. And EV inevitably will take the space, and we're replacing a finite fuel with an infinite fuel.
Okay,
so currently, okay,
yeah. Thank you for those points. I think we need to move on. We'll come back to you in the next round. Just wanted to move on to Dr. Saab. Dr. Saab, you have been wearing many hats. You are an academic. You have also been advising the government on EV policy, and then you are found a new board. So you are very well positioned to describe the overall landscape again of EV developing. Where do you think are the main challenges and what are the main opportunities? And I would really appreciate if you can be brief, because Ali has already touched upon some of the aspects of this question.
Right, thank you very much. I think I'll, because of, I think, paucity of time, I'll just mention a couple of points in response to your question. Number one thing is that Pakistan has enough electricity. So that's the good thing. The problem is that we have a weak distribution infrastructure. Once we fix that infrastructure, and that we have to fix in any case, because if we want to do anything with electricity, we have to fix that infrastructure. So whether EVs or not, that problem has to be solved. So good thing is Pakistan is one of the few countries which can theoretically right now can convert its majority of electric vehicle to electric, because we have enough electricity, and we have worked on numbers, and they are pretty positive. I think I will mention that one key thing in the whole EV value chain. Whoever is coming into EVs in whichever category, because EVs have different two-wheeler, three-wheeler, as Ali mentioned, buses, trucks, and then specialized vehicle, all have their own requirements in terms of charging infrastructure and vehicles and others. But one thing is something, if somebody can crack that puzzle, that company or that individual or that entity can really flourish into EVs. And that is the battery puzzle. The battery is the main problem whenever we want to do anything with EVs. I mean, the motors are not problem, electronics is not problem, software is not problem. The battery supply chain is actually the main problem. And there are three things there. One is availability of the battery, and I'm talking about lithium-ion batteries. The cell supply chain is very, very tight. For the tier one manufacturers like Samsung or LG or Panasonic, it's very difficult to get into the supply chain. So the option that we have with us are the tier two supply chain from different countries, primarily China. Another problem is that once you go into availability, then from tier two, the quality becomes a problem. And the quality, you have a whole, you can say, second-hand markets of secondary cells and then low-quality cells. So that's a challenge. And the third is scalability. I mean, many of the companies who are trying to work on EVs are not able to scale, not because they don't want to, or they're not finding enough buyers. Problem is they are not able to secure enough cell supply so that they can meet the needs of the whole supply chain. From the customer perspective, from the manufacturer perspective, battery is the key thing. Whoever solves that problem probably will be the winner in this whole value chain, because the rest of the things are relatively easy. I'm not saying they're solved problems, but we need to have a supply chain. But these are relatively simpler problems. So battery is the key in all the value chain. That's the challenge, and that's opportunity I think that we have beyond charging infrastructure, beyond any other thing in EVs.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you so much for your insightful remarks, Dr. Saab. Let me move on to the last panelist that we have, Mr. Iftikhar Javed Saab. He's heading auto finance at Bank Al-Falah. You are a very experienced banker, and you are very well positioned to talk about the demand side equation, not just of consumer financing, but of the whole infrastructure development associated with the value chain around EV. So we would like to have your opinion about where the challenges are and where the opportunities are. Over to you, Iftikhar Saab. Can you unmute yourself, please? Please unmute.
Thank you, Amar. Thank you so much. The automobile industry, as you know, the lot of has been discussed. It is very promising. At present, if we see the demand for automobile has been increased 62% year on year, if you compare it with 2020 with 2021. On loan side, if we see it has been increased up to 46%. So the overall market size lending, I'm talking about auto finance, that is 308 billion rupees right now. So linking it with the EV, so all banks are already all such kind of products in market. Either it is two-wheeler or it is four-wheeler or it is commercial. So most of the banks are lending the commercial vehicles through SME window, while four-wheeler through consumer window. At present, even there is no absolute infrastructure is available in Pakistan, and there is no established manufacturer in Pakistan. So besides banks are facing a challenge that is with respect to the resale of the asset, because in consumer or in SME, in most of the cases, the actual asset which has been financed is actual security. So there are some risks which are related to the future resale value of the vehicle. So secondary market need to be established as yet, but still the banks are financing in this sector. Only 2 or 3 variants are available other than two-wheeler. One is the Audi, the other one is the BMW has recently introduced, and the MG EV, which has been introduced in most recent time. So the lot of opportunity is there, although there are challenges, but a lot of opportunity is already lying there. As Mr. Ali Khar has given a reference of a revolution in Pakistan in 2005 and 6 with respect to CNG, when the whole the usage of fuel was actually transformed. So the room for EV and the demand for the EV and demand for the loans of the EV is available. So I just want to add one thing, because banks are holding a lot of liquidity right now, and they are looking forward to, especially on consumer side, banks are looking forward to more and more. That's why the rates have been reduced and a lot of other schemes have been introduced. So I request the panel and I request the state-owned institutions who are the policy makers that the EV should be, the incentive should be given through State Bank of Pakistan or Government of Pakistan to reduce the rates, because right now the rates are standard. The banks are lending on EV as well on arm length policy with same rates.
Okay. Thank you so much, Iftikhar Saab, for your very insightful remarks. I think we have some questions also from the participants and the guests, and I would like to pick up some of the questions. Dr. Saab, you mentioned that we have a lot of electricity, but one of the questions that has popped up is that moving from ICE to EV, would the Pakistani electricity generation be able to cope with the shift? This question has been asked by Mr. Amir Ali.
Yeah, so I think on the generation side, the generation is enough. That's not an issue. I mean, we have enough power plants. I mean, still we have 40% extra capacity in our system that we are unable to utilize. The question is the reliability of that supply. So for example, if a charging station is there and then there's no electricity, what's the use of that charging station? So I think those things needs to be addressed. And one of the ways they can be addressed, that distribution companies like Lesco's or KE needs to sit together and see that how can they provide reliability. I mean, they are providing reliable electricity to Orange Line Metro. They are providing reliable electricity to airport or other places. So there needs to be some mechanism of providing reliable electricity to charging infrastructure. So charging infrastructure development is a separate question that needs to be developed. No question about it. Electricity behind the scene is available, and costing is another thing. And that I think I know that NAPRA is working on new tariff rates for EVs, and hopefully there will be some good news coming out of those discussions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your answer. We have another question. I think any one of you can answer that. Maybe Asim Saab can answer, or Iftikhar Saab can answer. This is from Shahriyar Chaudhary. The question is, in case of CNG, we did not need to change the vehicle. Only a minor variation was required on petrol engine. Diesel engines were not converted. So do you think we would have problems in case of EV? A new vehicle will have to be purchased. So this is a comment rather than a question. Do you think this is a valid comment?
I think we can both address this, but Asim Saab first.
Okay, thank you. I think retrofitting will not work in EVs. It should be a new vehicle. It doesn't have engine. So the business sense will also be that we should be going for the new one. And we are not, by the way, dealing with the retrofitting.
So again, I completely agree with him as well. So retrofitting, particularly for three-wheelers, is done and could be done potentially. because you've got over 1 million of them, and what will happen once these EVs are operating within the same space. But within cars, it's not really very feasible, again, within bikes as well. But again, a lot of other things need to be looked at. So the primary driver for those, so a lot of OEM cars were coming into the market with CNG pre-fitted. So a lot of the new vehicles which will come onto the roads again could potentially be EVs and driven by fuel cost benefits and other benefits as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Iftikhar Saab, there's a question for you. This question is from Mr. Sadi Khalid. He says, our banks are ready. Are our banks ready to finance two-wheelers and three-wheelers for consumers? Can you please elaborate what type of products the banks are planning to introduce for EV in the future?
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Banks are already financing to the two-wheelers. Right now, it is being done through under the umbrella of credit card approved facility, and it is also being done through personal loan without securitizing the actual asset. So yes, banks are already having this product. There is no need to disconnect it or make any specific product for the EV. Yes, we can think about the rates. If you are talking about the three-wheelers, it is yet not in bank's umbrella because of state bank regulations. Either banks are lending to the four-wheeler, two-wheelers. Three-wheelers comes under a different umbrella. So for four-wheelers, for commercial vehicles and two-wheelers, yes, banks are already lending, and we will lend to electric motorbikes. We will lend to electric vehicles, either it is passenger or semi-commercial. So the products are already available. So there is the wheel is not need to invent again.
Yeah, thank you so much for that elaboration, Iftikhar Saab. We have another question. This is from Mr. Muhyiddin Khan. He's asking that for startups to sustain setting up a whole manufacturing facility right in the beginning makes it an unsustainable. The operation cost is too high and it doesn't allow for R&D. That increases the risk and investors don't feel confident in investing. So thus startups don't get any benefit. Naveed Saab, how would you respond to that comment from Muhyiddin Khan?
So I think this is a challenge for startups that typically the manufacturing industry used to come and with hundreds of millions of dollars of investment, like the Toyotas and the Hondas. In the EV space, of course, the startups cannot afford that much amount of money in the earlier stages. But there are new concepts of manufacturing that are also coming up, like, for example, microfactories, and many companies are experimenting with it. For the two-wheelers, in Pakistan, we have about 70 plus two-wheeler manufacturers. They don't require that big of a manufacturing facilities. Certain things needs to be adjusted, but I think the Engineering Development Board is open enough to newer ideas of manufacturing. And I think once a proposal is provided to them, they should be able to accept the newer ways of manufacturing rather than just sticking to the manufacturing that we have seen in case of the ICE-based vehicles. So I think it's more of a perception issue right now, but if one tries, probably this can be solved easily. One problem that we have, though, is that one company cannot use a manufacturing facility that's already certified for another manufacturer. That's an issue, and I think if that can be somehow relaxed, then many companies can share a manufacturing facility, and in that way, I think they can share a lots of benefits of joint manufacturing.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, now this is another question which has come. It is from Mr. Ali Sheikh. He says, is there a business case for light and heavy transportation vehicles, as they are the biggest share of our transportation related emissions? So either Ali Saab or Naveed Saab, either of the two can answer this question.
Is there a business case for light and
heavy transportation vehicles?
In Pakistan currently, so we're working on, so our potential market entry is potentially from light vehicles. On heavy vehicles, the dynamics are different. But as far as the light ones are concerned, if you go over to India and see, so Indians have already been, and people within the region have been on this journey. So whereas, yes, they are ahead of us, but alternatively, we've got a lot of learnings from them, and we need to see what happened within their market when the same disruption that we're bringing now happened. So again, I think the initial business cases in Pakistan will primarily come from light vehicles, two-wheelers, three-wheelers, not particularly cars, they'll remain niche. And I think with more government, will initially buses, etc., will come, but I think the government is also committing to bring some in. Then there's some financing, etc., happening in Karachi for them. But I think the business case primarily here will take a similar journey to India. So your light vehicles, three-wheelers, two-wheelers. And very soon you'll see some of those on the street, and potentially not in the same way. So it won't be manufacturers plonking the vehicles on the streets. I think it'll take a little bit more than that. So maybe companies even like ours and others will come in, operate the vehicles, operate mobility services, allow people to become more familiar with them, allow banks, finances, etc. More see, touch, feel, but eventually it'll come with light vehicles to start with.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for that very elaborate answer to that question. Iftikhar Saab, we have this question from Ali Asghar Mustafa. He's saying, is asking, will there be any leasing facilities for two and three wheeler in Pakistan? So do you see banks working on that product?
I already said, and I'm gonna answer this question. The financing for two-wheeler is available. I mean, irrespective of that is electric two-wheeler or that is conventional two-wheeler. For three-wheelers, yes, there are some constraints with respect to the regulations which need to be reviewed again for three-wheeler financing, because that comes under the either that is being dealt by microfinance banks, or the four-wheeler, semi-commercial or commercial vehicles, those are being like financed through SME sector. So for two-wheeler, we are okay. The banks are already financing. Yes, we will do it again, and we will keep doing it.
But I do think one underlying issue with this is that because electric vehicles initially don't have an underlying resale value, and the core asset you secure when you finance is primarily the vehicle within these small transactions, and there's no resale values, the banks are struggling a little bit with three and two-wheeler financing with EVs initially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for that elaboration. I can see Mavra, so that is a sign for me that our time is up. Anyway, thank you so much, gentlemen, for this very interesting and stimulating discussion. We are glad that we were able to take questions from the participants as well. And if there are any more questions, those would be handled right after the end of the next session, where we'll have another Q&A round. So thank you so much, and back to you, Mavra.
Hello, everyone. Hello again. Thank you so much for esteemed panelists. That was a very lively, and I learned a lot about e-mobility and EVs. So poll 3 is out. What is most needed to drive Pakistan's transition to e-mobility? Number 1, programs such as PPSE, PFAN that support green tech companies. Number 2, policy changes that help bring about industrial change. And lastly, access to investment by private institutions. Access to investment by private institutions. Okay, that seems to be very, very popular. Okay, so thank you for that. Let's move to the last session of the afternoon, where we will actually be giving a demonstration of sorts of our application process, and my colleague Mr. Hamad Bashir will be taking you through that, the PFAN application process, but particularly in the context for Pakistan. Hamad has 18 years of experience working in both public and private institutions, and has built credibility and expertise in project development in the area of renewable energy and energy efficiency, climate change, IT management, managing startups and accelerators. He has been working at UNIDO since over 6 years and indispensably wears many hats. So over to you, Hamad.
Thank you very much, Mavra, for this nice introduction, and good afternoon to all the participants. I could see this thing, that's a huge number of participants, which has touched nearly mark of 100, which shows the zest and zeal of the people and interest in this sector of EV in Pakistan. So all of you now have a complete idea, or I must say fairly good idea, of what PFAN is, as described by the Peter, Ghazal, Ali, Amar, and my other colleagues. And all of you have idea of this particular project, which is called Pakistan Private Sector Energy Project. And since we have talked much about EV, so all of you are very much interested in that. So since all of you have idea of that, I'll further reiterate what PFAN does and what we do in this particular project of PPSE. What we do is we help clean energy developers in accessing finance. We do hand-holding of project developers up till the time their financial close is made. So this is a golden opportunity. We provide all the documentation, all the facilities to achieve financial goals. These services, if you avail those from market or from the private sector developers, you might have to pay 30,000 to 50,000 or 60,000 US dollars. But this is a golden opportunity for all the project developers. If your project falls within our developed defined criteria, I would encourage all of you to please do apply and get this beneficial services from this UNIDO USAID PFAN PPSE project. Now, next step is for all the project developer is how to avail this facility. Now, in the next 10 minutes or so, I will be describing how you can apply, what are the tips of applying, and what are the modalities. So I'll share my screen. Okay, so I'll be describing the PFAN application process. So very simple. The first you have to go to our website, which is pfan.net. You'll see this kind of the interface. On this interface, on the right upper corner, you could see PFAN Pakistan project. You can click on this project. When you click on this project, you'll be guided to our other website, which is this one, PFAN Pakistan Private Sector Energy Project. When you go toward there, you could see this application process. You just click on this thing, click here to apply for PFAN support. It will take you to the module where you will apply for particularly Pakistan-based grants. So you'll click over here, and then you're taken to the main screen where you will be registering yourself. So the first is the registration process. Very simple registration. You need to write your organization's name and address, city, and you have to register with your email address. Again, needless to say, you have to have an active email address that you'll be sharing, because many of the communication and password reset and all things would be sent on your email address. So your email address should be valid, obviously. After this thing, you submit this request. Once you submit this request, you'll receive an email from Climate Invest saying that your application process has been approved. So you'll receive this email from Climate Invest, from this email address, and here you would create your password, and that your email address and this password you will be using for accessing your module, which is called Climate Invest. You'll receive this information. Thank you for registration. And after that, you create your new password. Again, there are simple rules for password, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, etc., that all of you know. Then once your password is created, you'll be guided to the home page. In this home page, you have to specify your project. So you'll click on this Start New Application, which is you'll click on this link, which says Start New Application. Once you click on this thing, you'll taken to another slide, another web page where you'll provide further information. One tip that I would like to give, owing to some technical issues, this site and on this page's information is not automatically saved. You have to save each information. So if you put any information over there and then just abruptly close that window, that information will be lost. You need to save every information before logging off and before closing that window. So please make sure you save information regularly. For each page, on the right lower corner, you would see save. You'll see save button. So once you have submitted your project over there, you'll see on the left panel, left side, you'll see this panel. In this panel, you'll see draft. That you click on this draft, and you'll be taken to your application that can be filled over there. And very simple forms. You can say you'll see simple forms. You'll provide your information, the company structure, the director's information, how many female members in the directors, shareholding, etc., the basic information. Since today we are talking about EV, so for specifically all projects related to EV, you need to specify this thing. That is the project company maturity, that you can say this is not necessary, it has to be growth stage, it can be a mature company. So this is not must, but what is most important is that when you specify, when you apply under the category of E-way, you have to select this thing that project is both climate adaptation and clean energy. Then again, within that heading, you have to select clean transport and then technology application. So technology application, you'll choose vehicle and technologies. So this is where your application would be considered as application under the category of EV. So again, once your password is created, you have created that information, you'll receive another email that you have been registered. Once you have been registered completely, then you have to apply, you have to log in again with the same password on this website, which is climateinvest.flux.io /user_session/new. Here you would be putting your ID and password, and then you'll be again going back to the project and you can complete your project information. Once you start giving your information, you also have to have certain other information. Now, very importantly, executive summary. This is without any, you can upload executive summary in PDF format or Word format. There are certain guidelines on the website, the guidelines on how to make your executive summary, that is already given. Also, project proposal, the financial modeling, which has to be in the form of a Microsoft Excel sheet, balance sheet, PL&L statements, and other documents that you would be giving. So this is the very simple process of applying for the PFAN services. So मेरी आप सब लोगों से गुजारिश है कि जिनके पास भी ऐसे आइडियाज हैं जो ब्रॉडली स्पीकिंग ईवी या ईवी के वैल्यू चेन के किसी भी फैक्टर से बिलोंग करते हैं, तो आप हमारी इन सर्विसेज पे जरूर अप्लाई करें। आपको ये सर्विसेज जो कि मार्केट में, जिस तरह के मैंने बताया कि $30,000 से $50,000 में जो काम होता है, वही सर्विसेज हम अपने इस प्रोजेक्ट में फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट दे रहे हैं, बिकॉज हमारा एम है कि क्लीन एनर्जी प्रोजेक्ट की फाइनेंसिंग इंक्रीज हो। If you have any questions, any further elaboration required, then you can contact me or you can contact on our social media pages. Thank you. Over to you, Mavra.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ahmad, for that. I hope it was like the process is very clear to everyone. We don't have that much time, but I think we have time for maybe 2 to 3 questions. I've selected a few. Unfortunately, we can't answer all of them because we have a lot of them. But what we'll do is that we will be sending everyone emails with all of the question lists and the answers. And the ones that were not answered, we'll try our best to answer them and send those to you. And of course, as Hamad is also saying, our team is always available for any questions or when you want to get in touch with us. So I'd like to take this question from Maniba Malik. It's not addressed to anyone in particular, but she's asking, is there any policy to build or use renewable for fundamental electricity generation to run EVs? Example, switching this whole idea to solar, because if we see using the electricity that's already being produced does not contribute much to changing the climate. I think what she means is that there's a pretty significant carbon footprint of even electronic vehicles because it will still be reliant on generating electricity. So can we move to maybe hydrogen or solar cars? If I understood your question correctly.
So we looked at solar. And we found that the initial, so there's limited places on a vehicle, especially a smaller vehicle where you can really place something which is solar. So initially, like for example, if that has to have any impact, it can't have enough solar potentially to power the entire car in an efficient way or entire vehicle in an efficient way, maybe the HVAC services or other services. We call this a well-to-wheel ratio. So primarily, so currently a lot of the fuels that we use, even when we charge ourselves and we say we're green, are coming from unclean sources. But again, it's a process. We're in a country here where we've got great sunlight, some of the best in the world. So again, as solar becomes cheaper, a lot of these will happen, but it's a process. It's a step-by-step process. Currently, we're coming from completely being unclean. So gradually and eventually we'll be there. As far as hydrogen, I can't exactly comment, but the globe is going in the electric way for a reason. This is tried, tested, happening at large scale. A lot of R&D is happening. So right now, Pakistan as a country is safe enough to stick to this. And if the future is taking us elsewhere, we look at it then.
Thank you so much, Ali.
A couple of just facts about some. So there are two things to it. One is the air quality issue, and then, as Ali said, it's the well-to-wheel emissions. So in Pakistan, if we convert a car or a motorbike or three-wheeler to EV, we are on average saving about 60 to 70% emissions if we count all the emissions that are coming from the power plants. They are coming from two ways. One is the efficiency of the EVs, and second is that we have about 40% of renewables, if you include hydro. But the more important point is that it is a transition. We have to start from somewhere. And the air quality in cities is going to be zero. The emissions are going to be there in the country, but they'll be coming from elsewhere.
I think lastly, just to close it, in the first wave of COVID, the government did a partial at best lockdown. And Lahore, which is this year, was the worst air quality of the world. And we have 6 of the world's 20 most polluted cities. Lahore's air quality went from being one of the world's worst to European levels where people were out on bicycles. So the impact of the transport sector is huge. And this is our first transition to it.
Very well said, Mr. Ali. Actually, there's a few comments that I actually want to change into a question because I think that hasn't been spoken about yet. What about the idea of behavior change or adoptability? What about the consumer side of things? What do you guys envision? What do you folks envision in that category?
We feel initially that people might have inhibitions to come use these, etc., especially if they have to buy them initially, as in they'll want more of an experience where they can see, touch, feel it. Otherwise, the overall experience is much better. I mean, it's smooth. A lot of that noise isn't there. The vibration isn't there. So there are barriers to it with charging times and all of those. But again, a transition. But we feel as far as people adopting them to buy them, on policy, certain things will happen. Bank financing potentially needs to be there. The cost maybe potentially needs to come down, or other things that, for example, even Naveed Saab and other people are working on from swapping and otherwise need to come in. But people initially need to become more familiar with them to realize that this is the future. In India, again, you've got millions of vehicles on the streets, and people have gone through that transition of accepting them and taking them, in fact, as a better alternative for what was currently there. And also, lastly, what was currently there in Pakistan, even in bikes, three-wheelers, and even some other vehicles as well, was potentially models which are running from the 1980s. So there's been no real innovation or any real thing coming within these. So these are going to be much more technologically enabled solutions. The user experience and the rider experience potentially will be much better. The fuel cost will be much better. So we have many things which go in our favor, some which don't. But we have enough to take our own leap into this huge space.
Thank you so much, Ali. Thank you for illuminating on that. Let's just take a quick last question. I think our EDB representative would be most suited to answer this. Is there any entity formulating a proposed tariff for EV chargers for review and determination by NEPRA? This is by Amir Baloch.
So Asim is not around, but I can probably try to answer that question.
Sure.
So NEPRA is going through a discussion on EV tariff, and they are currently with NREL and other USAID funded, you can say, projects, and also with the other entities like UNDP. Lots of inputs they are taking from the distribution companies, from academia. So currently the proposal is currently being worked out. So they are trying to propose a cost plus model, or because they would like to develop a model which is suitable for the consumer as well as for somebody who's establishing the charging infrastructure. So there are multiple models in the world. Which model they are going to be picking up, that is, I think, we'll be knowing pretty soon. So I think there's a lot of work that is happening in NEPRA, and personally been to NEPRA on these discussions. So I think those proposals are already being discussed, and some EV specific tariffs are going to be coming along with charging infrastructure related regulations.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you so much, Naveed Saab. That was a very, I think, clear answer. So I would like to thank all the panelists for their time, and also, of course, Hamad Saab for taking us through the whole procedure of application. So I'd like to repeat this again. We will be sharing the question answer list with everyone and trying to, follow up on all these questions that have not been answered. So you will do look up in your email, and please follow us on social media. We will be sharing recording of this session on our social media, Twitter and LinkedIn. You can follow us on Twitter at PFAN _ PPSE. And I just like to also quickly talk about our team that you can't see, that you haven't met actually, who've been working very hard behind the scenes. So I would request those team members to please open their cameras. So from all the way from Bangkok, we have Erng. She is a PFAN virtual event coordinator. She graciously assisted us with many technical and design aspects for this Zoom event. Erng, will you say hi to everyone? If you can wave to everyone.
Hi.
Then we have our PFAN program associated. As Ghazal said, he has been the backbone of this event. Santiago Nocelli, who all the way in Vienna was working tirelessly to bring this webinar to life. And he has been one of the main point of contacts actually that you guys also had on your agenda. And if you look towards your agenda, his contact information is there. So if you have any questions, concerns, follow-ups, you can always email him. Like I said, again, please do follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn. Right now, we are basically wrapping up, but we will have a survey right at the end. So when you leave, you will be redirected to a survey, and it will literally just take 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes of your time, and we'd really appreciate if you could answer those. Before we go, just the team would just like to wave to everyone very quickly, since this is the best we can do.